Good afternoon and welcome to Chargers Outside Zone. I'm Chuck.
I'm Thomas.
And today we're going to take a look at way too early mock drafts, one from 2023 by Mike Renner and one for, looking ahead 2024 by PFF's Max Chadwick. How about that?
Yes.
We'll go with that name. It's written in the presentation.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's what we're going to do on this Tuesday. Hope everyone enjoys. And with that, just want to remind everybody this is a father-son hobby where we focus on team building for the Los Angeles Chargers. We are not experts. We do not discuss gambling or betting. And we do our best to stay away from hot takes.
Yes.
All right.
We do.
So if we look at the 2023 way too early mock draft, I'm going to read to you the first 5 picks, and then we can discuss. So he had at number 1, the Texans taking Bryce Young. Number 2, the Falcons taking edge Will Anderson Jr. 3, the Jets taking Jalen Carter. Number 4, the Lions taking quarterback C.J. Stroud. And at number 5, the Jaguars selecting tight end Eric Gilbert out of Georgia.
Who is Eric Gilbert? Is
Well,
my question.
I think the other 4 players in that top 5 make sense. 3 of those went in the top 5.
Yes.
2 to the same team, the Texans. Bryce Young went number 1. The only one to fall out of that group was Jalen Carter. Well, out of those 4 to fall was Jalen Carter.
Yes.
For the off-field reasons. So Eric Gilbert he's played at Georgia the last 2 years. He has not seen the field very much. He did have 2 catches, 16 yards last year, and I think a touchdown. But he has since transferred to Nebraska, where he'll play for Matt Rule,
Yes.
former Carolina Panthers coach. So
Very Carolina heavy this draft.
Well, so it's good for Eric that he's still in football and maybe he gets a better chance at
Yes.
at Nebraska.
Yes.
Rough road to go if you're playing behind Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. But
One's going in 2024.
Yeah, we'll see that name a little bit later in the episode.
Yes.
So outside of Eric Gilbert, strong start to this way too early mock draft. We'll do 6 through 10 next. At number 6, he had the Panthers taking quarterback Tanner McKee out of Stanford. That's a name that we heard.
That's the name.
Giants take defensive interior Jacqueline Roy out of LSU. He was actually picked number 141 in this draft by the Vikings.
So he got picked, but very later.
True.
Very much late.
Here at number 8, you have the Seahawks taking quarterback Will Levis out of Kentucky. At number 9, the Bears take wide receiver Kayshon Boutte out of LSU. And at number 10, the Commanders take safety Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. Really, I think generally all those names fell, right?
Yeah.
Will Levis was talked about, but obviously he went 33rd
Day
to Tennessee.
2.
Yeah. So he would have been the earliest. Kayshon Boutte ends up with the Patriots much later in the draft, but names that we saw, just not names that we saw in the top 10.
Yeah.
At number 11, Steelers offensive tackle Anton Harrison. At 12, the Eagles take cornerback Cam Smith out of South Carolina. At number 13, Eagles take edge Nolan Smith out of Georgia. Number 14, Vikings take defensive interior Brian Brzee from Clemson, and Patriots edge Andre Carter out of Army. Really hit the Nolan Smith there to the Eagles. That happened, though, at pick 30. Anton Harrison was a first-round pick. He went to the Jaguars at 20-something, 7-ish.
24.
Jags were slotted at 24, but remember they moved out.
Yeah.
So I think they finally picked at 27 or something. He did have the Steelers taking an offensive tackle. They did that. I think the big faller here was edge Andre Carter out of Army. I think he ended up undrafted free agent, but got a lot of guaranteed money. I forget which team. Could have been the Patriots. Could have been somebody else.
Could have been someone else. Yeah.
And then 16 through 20, Raiders linebacker Trenton Simpson. Dolphins cornerback Keely Ringo. Titans, another hit here. The Titans taking offensive tackle Peter Skoronski, Northwestern. Cardinals wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ohio State. Colts cornerback Chris Adams Drain out of Missouri. So,
Who?
so these are some names that we saw, not necessarily in these places. He did hit once again with the Titans, taking offensive tackle Peter Skoronski. That happened at number 11 and not 18.
11.
So that was bang on right there. Trenton Simpson went later in the draft. Keely Ringo, 105 to Eagles. And this is the area where Jackson Smith and Jigba, he was the 20th pick.
First wide receiver off the board.
First wide receiver off the board. I think that stays true here. One pick away, he went to the Seahawks, obviously not the Cardinals. Chris Abrams Drain out of Missouri. He is returning to Missouri, so he did well this year.
He did
so
well.
That's good, but he decided to go back and play for that Missouri defense.
Yes.
So good for him, and maybe a name we see next year. We'll see when that comes around. In this way too early at pick 21, wide receiver Jordan Addison. 22, edge to the Bengals, edge Miles Murphy. 23, Texans running back Bijan Robinson. At number 24, Cowboys cornerback Eli Ricks. And number 25, Seahawks defensive interior Jervon Dexter. So names we're familiar with. Eli Ricks fell.
Yes.
Bijan went earlier.
Bijan went number 8.
Another hit here, Bengals edge Miles Murphy. That happened at pick 28-ish.
Yes.
So another hit there. And Jordan Addison was in this mix. The Ravens decided to take Zay Flowers out of Boston College. And then the Vikings took Jordan Addison one pick later.
Yes.
And I think he would have been, Quentin Johnston was 21, 22. So, yeah, Jordan Addison was 23 to the Vikings. So,
yes.
Very close. 26 through 30, Chargers taking offensive tackle Broderick Jones. Dolphins taking running back Devon Achane out of Texas A&M. Lions offensive guard Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. Packers tight end Jaheim Bell, South Carolina. And Chiefs taking wide receiver Quentin Johnston, TCU, a name that we're familiar with.
Yes.
He ended up a Charger at pick 21. Broderick Jones was number 14. Devon Achane, smaller running back, fell.
Why do you think that he thought that we needed help on the offensive line? I think our offensive line was good.
Right. So he probably projected Broderick Jones. This is kind of a little bit of a rough fit. Broderick Jones playing left tackle, Rashawn Slater is your left tackle. I'm guessing he projected him to move to the other side, not knowing that Jamari Sawyer would play well last year, but obviously the Chargers need a playmaker, not more line help, right?
Not more line help.
Yeah.
I would have pulled out my hair if we drafted more line help.
And that would be tragic since you have such nice hair. So
Yeah.
Good thing that didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the names that we don't recognize necessarily here is Cooper Beebe. He turned out to be this year he was the Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year.
Yeah.
And has decided to return to Kansas State. So that is a name to expect to see next year.
K-State.
Yeah, K-State. Tight end Jaheim Bell. He transferred to Florida State last year. He'll be returning again for his second year at Florida State.
Yeah.
We'll see if he projects. But, once again, names that we recognize, definitely two here that went higher than what he had projected. So that's always good to see. Yeah. So at 31, the Buccaneers quarterback Devin Leary out of NC State. Now, he has transferred to Kentucky, and so he will be backfilling the shoes of Will Levis.
Will Levis.
So I think that sets up to be a really good... Well, he was also injured a bit this year for NC State, and transferring to Kentucky. Early signs look good for him there. So maybe push him up the board.
Yes.
And Bills offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. We know that he went number 6 in the draft. So
yes,
my thought on these this way too early mock draft, the top end was consistent with what we saw.
Yes.
A lot of names stayed the same and went in the first round.
Yeah.
And you do have some fallers and, some kids that stayed in school, a handful of them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really great job of a way too early mock draft, getting some names in front of you, who to pay attention to in that college football year. Like you hit on, did the Chargers necessarily need offensive tackle? Probably not, but let's see what we see in the next one, right?
Yes. All
right. So with that, we move on to the 2024 way too early mock draft, looking ahead at a way too early by Max Chadwick of PFF. I think at the top here you see, I misspelled a name here, but my apologies. Interesting enough, you have Cardinals taking back-to-back picks, one of those being the Cardinals pick, one of those being the Texans pick.
Yes, I think there's going to be a trade.
Well, if they end up in that situation,
if they
trade out.
Yeah.
Potentially, but if they stayed and picked at those two spots, taking quarterback Caleb Williams, USC, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State, you could. I
would not be mad at that.
Yeah, you could do worse than that. So I believe interesting enough that those are likely to be hits.
Yes.
We expect. At number 3, the Colts taking offensive tackle Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. Titans taking tight end Brock Bowers out of Georgia at number 4.
Ooh.
And the Buccaneers taking quarterback Drake May out of North Carolina. Two quarterbacks, a generational wide receiver, would you call him, potentially?
Yes, I need to watch.
Good bloodlines there. Everybody's been, gaga over Brock Bowers since
even
his
I
freshman
have
year.
been.
So it'll be interesting to tune in to maybe a Notre Dame game or two to see Joe Alt, to see if he's really, offensive tackle 1 in this class.
All that and bag chips.
Yeah. And then we'll see about this next 5 because 6 through 10 was not stellar in this year's. But at number 6, Commanders take offensive tackle out of Penn State, Olumuyiwa Fashanu. I believe he was going to be a high offensive tackle in this draft class.
But he went to...
So he returns to school.
School to complete education.
Yeah, work on his craft, complete his education. You have to respect that.
Which is...
Commendable.
Yeah.
Rams cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. And I think every team would like to add somebody with the name Kool-Aid. That would be good fun. But He is
Trust Nick Saban. That's what I've.
he
got to
is
say
CB1
about it.
in this way too early mock draft. So at number 8, Packers taking a wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Imagine that. Ohio State producing wide receivers.
Shocking.
Shocking. And
Shock and awe.
And interesting at number 9, the Falcons taking the first edge off the board, Jared Verse, Florida State. So it does not appear in this particular way too early mock draft that there's top end edge talent. Obviously, as the season goes on and people watch tape,
Cream will rise to the crop, and
the cream will rise to the top, and we'll have somebody sitting up there.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. At number 10, Steelers taking linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr. out of Clemson. We'll see how his season progresses in the post Brett Venables Clemson defense.
Well, last year was the first year without Brent Venables.
Yeah, and
So in its second year without Brent, you meant to say.
yeah, so in his second year, so will that Clemson defense continue to perform on the field? Will it fall off? How does it progress as you move on? Because you have decent carryover. Clemson's the best in the ACC, one of the top recruiters year in year out. So
Yeah.
don't necessarily expect them to go anywhere, but it's just something to watch. Let's do 11 through 15. Seahawks, Jershawn Newton out of Illinois. Patriots offensive tackle, J.C. Latham, Alabama. Raiders going quarterback at number 13, Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. Bears in back-to-back picks here. So this would be the Bears and the Panthers picks. Bears take edge, Dallas Turner, Alabama. And the Bears take cornerback Kalen King, Penn State. So
That's really good for the Bears
yeah, adding to that defense.
to get 2 picks in the first round. No matter who they pick,
Right.
you have to hit on those picks, obviously. But back to back, and the 2 picks in the first round are very needed
Yeah,
for the
and-
Bears.
And this is done by Super Bowl 58 odds to win. Reverse order of that. I imagine the Bears or Panthers, one of those two teams is going to have a higher draft pick than 14 or 15. Hard to tell which one at this point. But
Both could win their division.
yeah, I think the Bears would have a steeper hill to climb for that than
Yeah.
the Panthers. But let's see.
Yes.
The names on here, Michael Penix Jr. jumps out.
Yeah.
Really need to see him progress in his second year at Washington. Obviously, he hit the scene in Indiana, and everybody likes watching a lefty throw the ball. So,
Yes.
but I think we need some progression from him. And if he does progress, it would be odd to see him land in and around 13 because, you had 3 quarterbacks go this year, 1, 2, and 4, and then you didn't have another quarterback go until pick 33, right?
Pick
So
33, yeah.
you're either going to go early or you're going to fall the second round, it seems. And probably keep an eye on Dallas Turner at Alabama. Edges tend to move up, so let's see what he does.
Yes.
Broncos will do 16 through 20. Broncos cornerback Cooper Dejan out of Iowa. Texans defensive interior Leonard Taylor, Miami, Florida. Here you have the Chargers taking tight end Jatavian Sanders out of Texas. The Giants at 19 taking edge Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Saints at 20 take edge JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. If you don't get Kool-Aid on your team, how would you like to get a Chop Robinson? That would be a
that's
good
fine.
backup plan, huh?
That's fine.
And but they have the Chargers going tight end here. Kind of makes sense. Gerald Everett would, I forget exactly his contract, but Chargers didn't add tight end this year, so probably
Adding
room there.
tight end next year might work out, but we don't know how deep the tight end class is.
Right, but here's a name out of Texas to keep an eye on.
Here's the name.
If you believe the Chargers should take tight end.
Yeah.
And that number 18 slot is first out of the playoffs, so Super Bowl odds do not have the Chargers making the playoffs. Let's hope that's not the case.
I'm thinking that's not the case.
21 through 25, Vikings started off with quarterback Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Dolphins are picking. That's crazy. I guess
the Dolphins
they're
are
not
a team.
planning on forfeiting, but Dolphins taking offensive tackle Graham Barton out of Duke. 23, the Jaguars cornerback Denzel Burke, Ohio State. At 24, Ravens defensive interior Michael Hall Jr., Ohio State. And number 25, the Lions take defensive interior Mason Smith out of LSU. Looks like we're going to have to watch some Ohio State football this year, huh?
Yes.
I think that makes 5 in total, if I'm not mistaken. An edge and 2 wide receivers, maybe something else. I'm sure they have a lineman somewhere or two.
Yes.
But here's back-to-back Ohio State on the defensive side, so expect that Ohio State defense to be stellar once again.
And also, again, like what you said, if Quinn Ewers is a quarterback, he's going to either rise or second round.
Right. And this is...
There's no middle of the first round or...
Yeah, really unlikely for him to, go in this spot. This is like when people aren't overly excited about first-round wide receivers, right? Because this is that pick 21 through 24 that we experienced this year that were all wide receivers. So I imagine you'll get some wideouts that cluster to this spot. But, yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
26... Cowboys take Cooper Beebe. We talked about him from the 2023. He was your Big 12 offensive lineman of the year. So here he falls he goes at number 26 to the Cowboys.
The Cowboys are very used to having people named Cooper.
Little Cooper Rush
on their team.
Yeah,
very used to it.
Well, and I think they like investing in the line as well, so that would line up good for them.
Name-wise and value-wise in play.
Yeah, the Packers here at 27. This is actually the Jets pick, so this says that Aaron Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps.
Which we
and the
also...
And the Jets do well.
Which we also think will happen.
Yeah. And they take safety Cameron Kinchins out of Miami of Florida. The Bengals at 28 take safety Kalen Bullock out of USC. Niners take offensive tackle Jonah Monheim out of USC. Bills offensive tackle Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU. My apologies for butchering names. But interesting here, you have a couple safeties. That's probably where safeties do go unless they have stellar performances, and you have a couple offensive tackles that I'm guessing are borderline late first, early seconds.
Yes.
Obviously if they play well like a Paris Johnson, they can move from where he was at 32 all the way up to 6.
Yep.
And and
a couple of USC players.
Yeah, so we were planning on watching USC anyways this year, right?
Yes. Yes.
Probably has a lot to do with that first pick in this draft of Caleb Williams, but let's get back to the bottom end of this draft. Here you have Eagles selecting wide receiver Xavier Worthy out of Texas, and the Chiefs taking wide receiver Rome Odunze out of Washington. Well, first thing that jumps out to me is these two guys are tied to quarterbacks that are also in this draft. Xavier Worthy tied to Quinn Ewers. Rome Odunze is tied to Michael Penix Jr. So really, if the quarterback is to succeed,
all ships will rise.
the tide will lift all boats.
Tide will lift all boats.
Yeah. So if their quarterbacks and these wide receivers can get together, they can make each other some money and push themselves up the board. So interesting names to go back and look at.
And to look
in the 2023, and then in 2024, obviously we got to watch Ohio State, USC. There's some Penn State guys on there. Couple of Miami, Florida.
BYU.
Yep.
But
so we'll have to tune in to see how those prospects progress during the season, which is always fun on on Saturdays, tuning in to college football.
Yes.
So
we will watch some college football.
anything else from your side before we close it out?
You know what I was shocked about?
What were you shocked about?
The fact that in 2023 we would draft another offensive lineman.
Where he projected an offensive lineman going to the Chargers and having them switch sides. Yeah,
I couldn't see that happening.
Right. So, probably a good spot for Broderick Jones in that draft, but just not a great fit for the Chargers having Rashawn Slater at left tackle. But I thought he did okay.
Yeah.
What do you say we get out of here?
Yes.
All right. Do us a favor and follow us on Twitter at LAC Outside Zone. On YouTube, subscribe, like, and turn on the notifications. We are Chargers Outside Zone on YouTube. We have a website, chargersoutsidezone.com. And if you get a chance, send us an email, chargersoutsidezone@gmail.com. Join us every Tuesday and Saturday for a new episode. And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.
Have a great day. Bye.
Have a great day.